Atlanta, Georgia, sometime between 2008 and 2010. Deep inside Delta Airlines' massive flight training center, engineers power up a multi-million-dollar Level D full flight simulator for the Boeing 787. In the dark, Delta pilots log hours, flying a digital aircraft out of virtual airports. But outside the building, not a single 787 wears the Delta livery. Delta is the only major U.S. legacy carrier to completely boycott Boeing's 21st century flagship aircraft. Yet, they are actively running its simulator. Delta operates over 400 Boeing aircraft. Right now, they desperately need a replacement for the rapidly aging fleet of Boeing 767-300ERs, which average over 28 years old. A 20-plane order of Boeing 787-10s would cost an estimated $6.7 billion. Yet, instead of buying the plane, Delta took a massive $4 billion existing 787 order and threw it in the trash, quietly ripping the simulator out of their headquarters. Why is Delta Airlines ghosting the perfect replacement for its aging fleet, refusing to let Boeing's flagship aircraft touch its runways? Rejecting this plane wasn't just about sticker price. To adopt the 787-10 meant willingly walking into a trap of raining metal, a deadly corporate scandal, and a hidden bureaucratic nightmare. How did Delta end up spending millions to train pilots for a multi-billion-dollar Phantom fleet they didn't even want in the first place? December 27, 2016. Delta CEO Richard Anderson quietly signs the paperwork to formally cancel a $4 billion order for 18 Boeing 787s. The anomaly here is the signature at the bottom of the page. Years earlier, as the CEO of Northwest Airlines, Richard Anderson was the exact man who originally ordered them. If the 787 was good enough for Delta's CEO to buy once, what hidden financial penalty made the plane so toxic that he chose to keep flying decades-old jets instead? Delta got the simulator and the initial order through the 2008 merger with Northwest Airlines, inheriting Anderson's multi-billion-dollar contract, his training hardware, and eventually Anderson himself. But they also inherited a weapon of operational paralysis, known as the fleet Commonality Trap. Delta's wide-body fleet is built heavily on Airbus, which utilizes cross-crew qualification, meaning an A330 pilot can transition to fly an A350 in just 8 days. Boeing aircraft require a completely new type rating, taking pilots out of the sky for up to 5 weeks, costing $50,000 per pilot, and triggering highly contentious pay scale negotiations with the pilots' union. The barrier to entry isn't just the billions of dollars for the airframes. The sheer friction of teaching pilots to fly the 787 threatens to stall the airline's daily operations. August 10, 2019, Isola Sacra, Italy. Norwegian Air Shuttle Flight 7115, a Boeing 7978, takes off from Rome. Moments later, the left Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engine suffers an uncontained failure. Searing hot, heavy chunks of metal rain down on the town, smashing through parked car windshields and burning residential lawns. If the Rolls-Royce engines are a deadly liability, why can't Delta just buy the 787 equipped with reliable General Electric engines instead? The 787 isn't just a pilot training nightmare. Delta watched from the sidelines as the plane became an active mechanical hazard that grounded dozens of fleets globally. The issue comes down to a weapon of corporate cannibalism called the MRO engine paradox. Delta's highly profitable maintenance arm is deeply intertwined with Rolls-Royce. So corporate synergy dictates Delta must choose the Trent 1000 for any 787s they buy to keep maintenance profits in-house. If they choose the reliable General Electric engine, they starve their own profit center. Delta found itself trapped in a lose-lose paradox. They had to adopt an engine with a documented history of catastrophic turbine blade degradation, or buy a reliable engine that undercuts their own multi-million-dollar maintenance business. March 9th, 2024. A Holiday Inn parking lot in Charleston, South Carolina. He is found midway through giving a multi-day deposition in a whistleblower retaliation lawsuit, warning the world that Boeing's North Charleston plant is fitting substandard parts to 787s and installing emergency oxygen systems with a 25% failure rate. With Delta's wide-body jets hitting their 30-year expiration date and Boeing desperate enough to offer massive discounts on unsold 787s, will Delta finally cave and buy the plane at a fire sale price? Delta cannot solve the problem by swapping engines, because the crisis isn't just under the wings. It is baked into the sole factory that builds the airplane. This is the sole-source production bottleneck, the ultimate destroyer of dispatch reliability. The 787-10 is exclusively built at this exact North Charleston facility, which is currently plagued by federal audits and criminal probes that cap production at barely 5 airframes a month. Delta commands premium ticket prices based on on-time departures, meaning they cannot link their flagship fleet overhaul to a broken single point of failure supply chain. The 787 risk has escalated from a training nuisance to a mechanical flaw to an existential operational threat, surrounded by federal investigations and corporate death. January 12, 2024. Delta Headquarters, Atlanta. CEO Ed Bastian sits before the press and signs a blockbuster contract. But he does not sign for cheap Boeings. He signs for 20 Airbus A350-1000s, with options for 20 more. Delta did not take the discounted white-tail aircraft Boeing offered. Instead, industry insiders whisper, Delta used the threat of buying those heavily discounted 787s as leverage to extort a cheaper price out of Airbus. Why did Delta ghost the 787? Because the plane was ultimately far more valuable to Delta as a phantom negotiating tactic than as an actual piece of hardware. By sizing up to the massive A350-1000 and down to the smaller A330neo, Delta completely erased the middle ground, where the 787-10 would sit, officially locking Boeing out of Delta's long-haul expansion for the next 2 decades. A nearly 3-decade-old Delta Boeing 717-300ER lifts off the runway, banking and taking off into the sunset. Delta will continue flying over 400 Boeing narrow-bodies, but the 787 Dreamliner will remain a ghost in Atlanta. The aging 767s will keep flying until 2030, replaced seamlessly by the unified Airbus wide-body fleet. In modern aviation, the ultimate replacement aircraft isn't just about fuel efficiency on paper. It's about surviving the invisible labyrinth of pilot union contracts, maintenance monopolies, and factory floor reliability. The 787-10 failed all 3.